Well, it's a one for the money,
two for the show, three to get ready.
Now go, cat, go, but don't you step on my suede shoe.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our second series of Friday Night Flashbacks. We hope you tuned in last week and you had some fun with West Side Story. This week, $1 Million Quartet. Now, those of you who know the theater know that $1 Million Quartet was first done here in the fall of 2016, and it was one of our longest running shows ever. It ran for 11 weeks. It was a huge hit. We did it in the upstairs theater. People had a ball being up and close and personal with this great rock music and this great story. And then we actually brought it back in 2018 with a slightly different cast, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But I just wanted to tell you that this show goes all the way back to 2008. Barbara Stein and I took a ride up to Daytona Beach to Seaside Music Theater. We heard about a new show called $1 Million Quartet, and we were interested in taking it from Daytona to Miami and then to Broadway. And in the process, it went from Daytona to Seattle, and then to Broadway, and then to tour after tour after tour. And we were not able to get the rights until 2016, but at that time, we were the first ones to get the rights right here in South Florida. And this is a show that was put together by Colin Escott and Floyd Muttricks. And they had an idea that on December 4th, 1956, it was the one night that Jerry Lee Lewis, who was a newcomer at the time, Carl Perkins, Elvis Presley, who was in town, and Johnny Cash all were together for one night. And there's a famous picture. And the next day in the papers, the picture was the $1 Million Quartet. And so these gentlemen had the idea, how about we write a show, not about the jam sessions and what really went on, but with their hits, everything that was factually happening in their lives. And it turned into like an incredible hit that people have loved. And once you get the right talent and the right musicianship, it's great. So the first person I turned to was a young man I'd known for years. And we go back a long time. His name is Dominique Scott. And well, let's bring Dom on the screen right now if we can and talk to him, because he was the first guy I had to talk to. There's the man. Dom, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, likewise.
So remember that you and I had talked about $1 Million Quartet even before I had the rights. You know, I think you had said something to me like, if you ever get the rights for the show, I want to do Jerry Lee, you know?
Right.
And I remember saying, well, okay, but tell the people a little bit about your background at the theater, because I know you started here really young.
Yeah, I grew up at Actors Playhouse. That building, that establishment is really my second home. I remember back when it was in its infancy in Kendall, my mom, and I was in my infancy, my mom would take me to go see a lot of the children's theater shows on the weekends, and I loved it. And then, you know, I'd go on school field trips to see the shows, and I remember just going home and crying to my mom and saying, I just want to do that. I want to be up on stage. I can do that. I can be the best at that, and let me do it. And I auditioned for the musical Miracles in 2000, and at that time, Dave, you were casting Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat with Irene.
For the kids' chorus, yeah. Irene in the lead, yeah. And Tim Johnson, yeah, that's right.
That's right. And so I was in the kids' chorus with like 30 other kids, and that was my first time I ever worked with you. And then, and ever since then, I've been very closely connected to the theater. I always try to go back. I always try to give back, whether it's performing in shows, doing these types of things, you know, with Earl, with you, for Barbara. I'm a huge Actors Playhouse kid.
When did you start the musician side of your career?
My parents put me in piano lessons when I was 10. I remember I was in 4th grade, and I had this teacher, Maria Borges, who was she's a classical pianist, very strict. She would always she'd be like, Dominique, you have to sit up straight. And she'd poke her finger in my back. And I remember, and she'd tell me I'd have to practice, and I never practiced. And I love her, and I owe her so much because she really fostered the beginning of my music. She gave me all the technique that I needed in my fingers and a lot of beginning musical theory. And she loved me and believed in me as a kid. And I only studied with her for 4 years, but I really I'm so indebted to her for
And then that's fabulous. It's great. Teachers are amazing, whether they're teachers from the school system or private teachers or whatever. It's amazing what they can do for people. And then I remember the next thing I knew about Dom, folks, was that he was on a national and international tour of Rock of Ages.
Right.
And he was like a superstar, man. Remember that experience?
Of course, it was one I'll never forget. I remember when I graduated. So out of college, I had been doing a bunch of different shows. I did a show called Little Women, where I got my EMC points, and then I did Fiddler on the Roof as Fietka, and I had done, a lot of different things.
You did ragtime here, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
And Miss Saigon as well. It was
That's
my first.
right. I forgot about Miss Saigon. Yeah.
Right out of college, I did Miss Saigon with Dave, and so anyway, I was in New York auditioning, and I had gotten like to the end of a lot of really big projects. I remember, I was 22 and working my restaurant job, but also writing music with my band and pursuing, trying to get a record deal with my band, but also trying to get on Broadway. And one of the shows that I got to the end with was $1 Million Quartet. I went in maybe like 3-4 times. And I remember one time I went into the casting office over Christmas break when everyone was gone. And it was really bizarre. It must have been like some kind of like really emergency thing, because we walked into the casting office, which is huge. And there's normally all these projects casting and all kinds of people walking in and out. And it was completely empty. And there was like, I swear, like tumbleweeds coming through. It must have been like the 22nd or 23rd of December. And it was me and like 2 other guys at this point. And when I walked into the room, there were 30, 40 people behind a table, which is very bizarre, to feel like 1 versus 40, in an audition setting. And I remember I was so hungry, and I wanted to show them that I could crush this. And I had a really great audition, but I didn't get it. And I remember since that moment, I kept getting called in for $1 Million Quartet, like clockwork, every 3-4 months. Can you record this? Can you record this? Can you record this? And I never booked it until it must have been like 5 years later. Finally, Hunter Foster, who cut me from his first audition, like his first regional production. In the second regional production, he called me back, and I got it. And ever since then, I've done like 1 million of them. So. And
that's where the next part of our story comes in. But right now, let's watch a little bit of Dominique Scott as Jerry Lee Lewis in our production of $1 Million Quartet.
Well, I'm at a school and I'm a real cool. I got a job, I got the job, got the message, I'm alive. I'm a wild one. Yeah, I'm a wild one. You're gonna keep me shaking, gonna keep it moving, baby. Don't you cramp my style, cause I'm a real wild child. Come on, baby, shake it all night long. Shake it till the meek mama the bone, cause I'm a wild one. Yeah, I'm a wild one. Yeah, you're gonna keep me shaking, gonna keep it moving, baby. Don't you cramp my style, cause I'm a real wild child. Woo!
All right, so there's Jerry Lee. So obviously Dom looks a little different right now than he does as Jerry Lee Lewis at the keyboards.
That's
Listen,
right.
you were terrific in that show, but I think you won a Carbonell for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah.
And we also won for Best Ensemble. It was quite a show. But what a lot of people don't know, Dom, is that I actually came to you because you had just finally gotten your break from Hunter Foster and from a couple of theaters. You were doing it at Gateway and Westchester up in the Northeast. And I knew that now, not only were you were ready to tell me some things about the show, because the show comes with lots of inside info. Mm-hmm. And remember all the stuff we went through with the music and the score? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I remember when we first started having discussions about the show, you were saying that you were doing it and that you were considering working with me. And I remember telling you, like, just when I learned the show, just to give people who don't do theater, like when you walk into a rehearsal for the first day, you're given a script and a score, and that's it. You do what's on the script, you do what's on the score, and that's always how it goes. So when I first walked into $1 Million Quartet rehearsal, I was given a script and a score, but when I would play the score, the people around me would look at me like, what are you playing? No, that's not right. That's not, here's how we do it. And music is really interesting because you can read music, you can play music by listening to it, you can play music by how you feel, by memory, your instinct. So there's all kinds of ways of creating music, you know, and that score is really not, it doesn't reflect what is done on Broadway and in the rest of a lot of regional theaters, you know. So people will change things to make, and some people will say that the score is a little bit cheesy, you know, that the arrangement wasn't, you know, faithful to the recreation that made the Broadway production so great. So because I was fortunate, you know, a lot of the earlier regional productions, the first ones, were made up of a bunch of cast members from the Broadway and the tour. I learned directly from them. I mean, Hunter Foster was in the Broadway show, you know, and
right.
so
Right. He played Sam Phillips in the show, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So these people they learned from the creators, and I learned from them, and they taught me, you know, like, no, these are what we play in the interludes, and these are the reasons why, and this is why it's more authentic, and this and that. So and when you look at the difference, it's huge. So every production that I've ever done of MDQ, it's very unique, and that you're learning the show by ear. You're saying, all right, play this, and Carl will play, hey, play this, or, you know, whoever's music directing, and which is really cool that you can do that amongst a cast of musicians, because you can talk about music in a different way than like, okay, measure 4, measure 15, measure 17, you know?
Right. And I remember you telling me, so we made a deal, folks, just so you don't know, Dom wasn't only Jerry Lee Lewis, he was the musical director of the show too. And for the first week of the show, all we did was work on the band.
Yeah.
He brought me these 2 great guys, Andy and Adam, who played bass and drums. He suggested Sky Seals to me, who had done the show with him, I think, at Westchester. And in the meantime, we found our other guy, Jeremy Savelovitz. Jeremy had sent me some videos. I knew some people that knew him. He ended up being our Carl Perkins. Is Jeremy Savelovitz in the waiting room?
Jeremy Savelovitz.
Jeremy in. Mr. Savelovitz, where you be?
Where you be, Jay Sebs?
Did I make it?
I hear your voice. I hear your voice. How about
Jay
hit the click video.
Did I do it?
Yay!
Yay!
Jeremy,
We made it.
You're looking good, brothers. So Jeremy was our original Carl Perkins and also our Carl Perkins again. Listen, since we're all together, it's Friday night flashbacks. We always like to have a little cocktail. If you don't have one, Jeremy, I'm sorry, but Dom and I are going to have
Oh, Jeremy has
It's all right.
Jeremy's got a
It's all
bottle
right.
of water or something.
I'm hydrated. I'm hydrated.
Gentlemen.
Salud.
Let's have a party. Let's have a party. Let's have a party.
So we got back together again. This is cool. We're going to miss some of our buddies today, but we're going to show some clips of them. So that's cool.
Dave, I just have to say something. Yesterday was Jeremy's birthday.
Oh,
Happy birthday, Jay!
Thank you very much.
How old are you now?
31.
31. Get
happened.
out of here.
Did you ever think we'd make it this far?
You guys
You don't look a day over 21.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that.
So Jeremy Carl Perkins in the show, and Dom will attest to this. He carries like 90% of the lead guitar work in the show, you know? So
That is true.
we had to find a person who could kick butt on the electric guitar as opposed to the acoustic, although it's acoustic work too. And Jeremy, tell me just a little bit about your background with the guitar and acting and singing.
Well, I bought my first guitar when I was 13. Always wanted to be a rock star. Discovered Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and AC/DC right about 12, 13. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So I learned every classic rock guitar riff I could. And that was it for many, many years. I went to the Hart School of Music for my undergrad.
And we didn't mention
theater.
Dom. We didn't mention Dom. You went to Syracuse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
You guys are well schooled. Excellent. All right.
We do what we can. Yeah, so I studied musical theater at the Hart School and was just playing guitar just as a hobby. And then after graduation, there was a surge of actor-musician shows, Ring of Fire, which I know you guys did with some great success last season as well. Buddy Holly, a bunch of other shows, and of course, $1 Million Quartet was starting at that point. So I thought, well, let me see if I can take this hobby that I love so much and try to put it to work. And it took some years and it took some trying, but it all worked itself out.
It all worked out, man. You're a terrific player. and you fit wonderfully into the group. And so now we had Dom, and we had the drummer and the bass player. We had our Johnny Cash, Sky Seals, who's a different Johnny Cash than our Ring of Fire Johnny Cash, but still a terrific Johnny Cash. And then we had our Carl Perkins. Let's show a little clip now of a little. You'll see Dom too in this clip. This is Jeremy and Dom and some of the other folks in another clip from $1 Million Quartet. Woo.
I walk 47 miles of barbed wire. I use a cobra snake for a necktie. I got a brand new house on the roadside made from a rattlesnake hide. I got a brand new chimney right on top made of a human skull. Well, come on, baby, take a walk with me, Arlene, and tell me, who do you love? 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 I got a tombstone hand in a graveyard mine. Well, I've done 22 and I don't mind dying. Who do you love? Who do you love? Who do you love? Who do you love?
Right, a little bit of $1 Million Quartet. And of course, you've seen a lot of other people in that video. That video was actually from the 2018 production. So the young man doing Elvis was Corbin Meyer and Sky Seals and Lindsay Corey. Greg Wiener was
Greg Wiener.
Phillips. It gets very confusing because in the original, it was Jim Ballard doing Sanborn,
Right.
and it was Eddie Clendenning. Remember Eddie?
We've had a revolving door of players,
and then we had a couple different people on bass and drum too.
Yeah, we had my cousin and my Spirit Studios partner Daniel Bailey on bass.
That's right.
And then the gentleman you brought with me, David from
Dave Sanborn.
We had Dave Sanborn.
That's right. That's right. So they're all fantastic musicians. And I remember working on this music and you guys being real serious about it as far as getting the music right and the hours and hours. And you had sound checks every night. And you guys would sometimes just jam. I'd come upstairs expecting you were going to be working on real stuff for the show. And you were just jamming.
Well, and we had worked on that stuff. We just had gotten through it and decided to jam out a little bit. Yeah. Got to keep it loose.
And so I guess the most exciting part of the show for the audience and for the actors is the finale, because so folks, we already showed you the picture from 1956 that the show is based on. But what happens at the very end of the show is we isolate the boys into that picture because that is the moment that the show was based on. And then all of a sudden the drums start, the set changes, and out they come kind of decked out a little bit more. and each one of them gets a feature. And we're going to show that to you a little bit later. But just talk about the audience response during that part, both of you. We'll start with you, Jeremy, and then we'll move to Dom.
Well, I mean, there are few moments in my career thus far that I hold so dearly as the finale of $1 Million Quartet. I mean, at this point now, I've done 10 productions of $1 Million Quartet over the last 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
And it's just one of those things where you could have a room full of people who are having the worst day in many days. We've had older patrons come in with walkers and wheelchairs, and by that finale, everyone has turned into their 13-year-old self. They're dancing in the aisles. They're, jumping over seats. I mean, Dom jumps over seats too, depending on which theater he's in. I mean, it really is wild. And it's definitely an experience where all of us on stage are kind of going, oh, they like the first 10 minutes. So wait till the last. They're
and then, of course, Dom gets the lucky, Jerry Lee Lewis gets the lucky side of the show to get the finale. And let's talk a little bit about that, because remember how we wanted to move the piano too and all that stuff?
Yeah. that was something that started actually with Hunter Foster. He, on Broadway, they didn't move the piano. The piano was a real piano that was set in one location for the duration of the show, including the finale. But Hunter had this crazy idea to like move it to the center. So when I got plugged into his version of the show, that's what I did. And then, after doing it so many times, it kind of evolves and you get your kind of routine. So now when I go out, I'm like, they're like, hey, Dom, do you want to do your version of the finale? I'm like, yeah. That's what you're so used to, the things and all the shtick and all the things that you do, because it really requires a lot of rehearsal and to get to a point where you can do it. I mean, I remember we wanted to raise the bar of crazy to like level 100. And I remember having to spend, the first time I did the show, I spent like a whole night trying to play songs backwards on the piano, which is the hardest thing to do, but it doesn't even look the best. So we cut that. Like, I don't do it, but like you try all these things.
We're going to show a little clip right now of the finale of the show, but we're going to show it again in a minute. But we're just going to show the part where you're talking about right now, when you're playing, not the one where you're sitting on it, but when you're playing blindfolded. Yeah, to the audience. Okay, so let's take a look at that, all right?
Alrighty then, well, we're gonna have to take it to the next level. See, cause old Jerry Lee brought a bandana to tonight's performance. And by tonight, I mean afternoon, of course. And what I'm gonna do, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm just gonna blindfold myself. Don't get any ideas. All right, here we go. Now if I fall, someone catch me, all right? Careful, Gary, there's a piano.
Jerry Lee, you are mean.
Mean.
The audience loved that stuff. And then you're going to see some more clips where Jeremy's climbing up on the bass and everybody's just going cuckoo in the end of the show. And especially what Jeremy was talking about a minute ago, because I want you to talk to the audience about this, because we're going to show some clips of this too, Dom. The decision to go into the audience. I remember when you first came to me with this. And I said, but Dom, you can't do this every night. If the audience is packed, as you said, don't worry, Dave. I'll get through them. I'll get through them. Where did that start? Was that here because of the way the theater was configured, or was that elsewhere?
I don't remember, to be honest. I know that I probably have gotten the most leeway at home at Actors Playhouse to go about that. I mean, honestly, one of the things I love about theater is the element of anything can happen, right? Which is why even when it's scripted, anything can still happen. But then, like when it becomes improv, I love little bits of improv where you get to really play with the audience. I think that takes it even to the next level, which is super appropriate in the finale. You've been watching these guys the entire show, you feel connected with them, and then they're going to give you this awesome concert. Yeah. So there's a rapport there, but then to even break down the wall further, and I get to walk in and anything can happen, I think is a lot of fun. And I know different actors feel differently about that. I'm always really comfortable about that. That's just a skill set that I have.
Well, it makes a big difference if the actor makes it comfortable for the audience around them. I mean, I remember you would even go into the audience and say, like, put your finger up, and you go, yeah, you too, woman, I can see you, or something like that. But you would say it in a nice way. You wouldn't say it in a rude way. Now, before we end, I just want to ask you just one fun story, okay? I remember a night that I never saw, where because folks, things happen backstage all the time, okay? And a director is not always there every single night. And I remember there was a night in our production of $1 Million Quartet when a door came off the wall.
Oh, yeah.
I remember this night very vividly, Dave. I remember all of us, because there's the door into the studio on the set, which was beautifully designed. We had a little exterior space, and then you would move into the interior of the studio.
Right.
And there was one week, I guess we were feeling a little hot, so that door got slammed a couple of times.
And it wasn't a real door; it was a stage door. It was a Hollywood flat. So it was like, oh.
So it can only take so much pressure. And I remember going in for our sound check that particular show, and Carl, the stage manager, saying, "All right, guys, we're gonna have a great one tonight. Just take it easy on the door. It's it's on its last leg." I was like, "Well, all right, sure." And we came out. We did Blue Suede Shoes, and the audience. I just remember that audience that night just being fully maxed out right from the start. So it gave us this adrenaline boost. And Dom comes in with Jerry, and the door slams. And Carl comes in and the door slams. And Johnny comes in and the door slams. And then when Eddie comes in for Elvis, he comes in, he slams this door, and it just falls right off the hinges. And of course,
I remember there's a scene where you guys had to go in and out and in and out. Meanwhile, you see the stagehand trying to put it back. It was actually my hands, because to choreograph that, I had to go behind the door, and I'm in this little corner, and it fell off the hinges, and half the audience could see. So I just tried to just hold it up, and I think it was Dom who just turned around after this whole debacle and just takes the door off the hinges, looks at Mr. Phillips, and goes, "You gotta fix that door," and the whole place just falls apart. Well, Dom's always been really good with a little bit of improv. He loves that stuff anyway. Listen, I can't thank you two guys enough. I'm going to do, just for the heck of it, and listen, I love everybody who's ever worked on the show, and I want to thank all of them. But I do want to do a little fun tribute to Eddie Clendenning, because he was the original Broadway Elvis, and he was nice enough to come and do our show.
Legend.
So I'm going to show them a little something that was Eddie's audition for me for our production of $1 Million Quartet. And,
man.
I'll say goodbye to you guys right now. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us, Dave.
And we're going to switch on over and take a look at, everybody else did a normal audition, folks, but Eddie did a very different kind of audition.
This is going to be great. How can this not be great? And if it's not great, I'm going to eat my tie.
Oh, you know what? Gonna tell Aunt Mary about Uncle John. Baby got the misery, but heaven not the fun on, baby. Well, baby, having me some fun tonight. When I saw Uncle John with bald head Sally, saw Aunt Mary coming, man, he took in the alley on, baby.
So, folks, that's Mr. Eddie Clendenning. And so when most people send me an audition on an iPhone, or I see him in the studio live, or we do a callback live, but I originally saw them on a little camera clip or a little iPhone clip, Eddie Clendenning sends me him on the David Letterman show. I figured, okay, but this guy was the first Elvis Presley on Broadway in $1 Million Quartet, and he was on the David Letterman show. Maybe I can let him in my show. So thank you, Eddie. And anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed tonight's $1 Million Quartet. We have some more clips and a montage to show you at the end. But, this has been a very difficult time for our country, and especially for the performing arts. So we're dealing with being financially drastically nailed to the wall on not being able to come back, and not even knowing when we can slowly come back. And so tonight, one of the small features of this Friday night flashback series is a donate now to give AP. Nothing is too little, and nothing is too large. Any of your help can help this incredible professional regional theater right in your community come back strong when we can come back. And performers like Dom and Jeremy and people you've been meeting online while we've been during this quarantine and during the pandemic. These are people that care and love about this place. They want to come back. They have loved your response. They've loved your applause, and they want to be back. And I know you want them back too. So just remember that, and tell friends about Friday Night Flashbacks. And at the same time, let's have some more fun with $1 Million Quartet. Thanks so much.
My house, steal my car, break my leg, run over Joe. Well, you can do anything that you want to. Oh, honey, they offered you this show. Step on my blue suede shoe. Well, you do anything, they offer my blue suede shoe. To your dining car, they're probably drinking coffee.
I know I can't be free. Well, those people keep moving, and that's what tortures me. Leave them down the shore, then you won't be bothered with me. Hang around your door, so that's alright. Maybe that's alright. That's alright now, mama. Anyway.
Well, it's a one for the money.
2 for the show. 3 to get ready.
Now go, can't go, but don't you step on my blue suede shoe.